agenda is to approve minutes of our regular April the 8th budget meeting.
Move approved. Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to get the 2010-2011 budget review. And for the benefit of those in the audience and those watching on TV, the work that will be presented tonight reflects the work that has been done up to this date in conjunction with the finance director, the mayor, the Rutherford County School Board, the Road Board, department heads, and most of these budgets have also gone through the committee process. And then the work for this committee begins after tonight. We have several meetings scheduled for work sessions, with our mission being to have a recommendation to the full commission on June the 28th. So I will turn the meeting over to our finance director, and she will give us the overview. And
Ready?
and also remember that today is her birthday.
Today's my
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So she's in
39 again.
a celebratory mood, right?
One next year.
Let's see, it's 39 plus 1 decade. Okay.
The best is yet to come.
That's what I've heard. Okay, we're going to start with the information that we received from the assessor's office, and it's the certified tax rate. We're going to start with this long form. You can put everything aside. In the values, in 1 and 2, does not include tax-free properties when they do their computations. Oh, wait, I'm going to wait till everybody gets there.
If you're waiting on me, you'll miss the whole
I'm
meeting.
going to wait. In 4A and 4B are the new constructions and new personal property that will show up in 2010. So that tells you right there you've got some growth, about $63.7 million in growth. Once the computations are done, go to the bottom. Our equivalent tax rate is $2 and around 45 cents. Taken out to 4 places, 2.4481.
That's a projected certified tax rate.
Thank you. That's a projected one. That's the one that is being submitted to the state.
And our current tax rate
No.
It's
is
$2.73.5.
Proposed, not really projected even. Proposed.
Well, this is
Well,
what, this is what our
this is-
computation
this is-
the
is.
state will tell us what it is.
They will confirm this or make a slight modification if they find some reason to.
Okay, so this is what was sent from our assessor's office into the state.
Will that, if the state certifies it, it'll stay at that, or just?
That becomes our certified tax rate, which is equivalent to the $2.73.5. Okay. All right, I want you to go to the second page. This shows what our current tax rate is amongst the different funds to get to the $2.73.5 and the ratio. Okay, so taking the $2.44.81, I distributed the tax, this certified rate, based on the same ratio.
And because he used it out to 4 decimal points,
I
he's going
used
to
it to
continue
4.
that. Okay.
You can see the ratios are the same. So go to the page 3, that is the value of the penny. And the proposed tax rate is, again, it's the distribution of exactly how the tax is on the same ratio. Bottom line, general fund penny is $578,908. Compares to about 505 is what we were using last year. Okay, so the value increase, which makes sense.
You've got that down here somewhere. I don't see where
It's
you got that.
it's
the box.
in the box
On the
right
box.
here.
Okay.
That's what I'm speaking to. So the budget's revenues were based on this distribution of the tax, of the property tax. Okay? So this is where we're going to spend some time on page 4. And if you would, get this one. I'm going to go over this sheet. This is for you to take home, but these are my talking points. Estimated, and I'm just going to start from the right to the left. Left to the right. Left to the right. I'm going this way. Beginning with the estimated undesignated fund balance, $80,971,822 for all the funds. In development tax, there is $975,000 in a designation that we designated years ago when the development tax was coming in very nicely. We set aside $975,000 for debt service, if need be. And this recommendation is to release that designation and have it available to use. Coming over to revenues, as I spoke to, these revenues already include.
But that's leaving 3.1 in development, right? Almost.
I have 3.1 and
Estimate, as of
estimate.
6:30.
Right, and the 975. You add those two together.
Right.
Okay.
The 975, do we have something committed
No.
for that? Are we
No, I
planning
mean,
on-
no, that's, oh, well, are you asking me, are we planning on using it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Stay tuned. Okay.
You see that things.
Okay, so revenue, $392,777,000. The next column, using reserved fund balance. We're recommending using part of the reserve of fund balance, two different areas, one being the litigation tax that is set aside for construction or renovation or payment of principal and interest for jails, workhouse, courthouse. So of that reserve, $275,000 we're going to be recommending to use, and of the difference between $40-some thousand is needed to come out of the reserve of the Register of Deeds computer line item as a reserve for automation. She needs that much to finish paying out some of the stuff that
Out of
she's
the
got in the current.
317?
Yes. It's two different reserves. 275 is out that litigation tax. The other one is for the Register of Deeds. Appropriations in total, $407,191,000 in total. So we're going to, first box, in total, using our appropriations are more than our revenue by $14 million. And now we're going to stop right here and we're going to talk about each one of these. In the general fund, we're almost $4 million short appropriations over the revenue. There's significant decreases in revenue in the general fund, and we've talked about this along the way. But in about 5 areas, I can make almost $4 million of that total reduction. One is the payment in lieu of taxes. We've got people rolling off of that revenue source by about $600,000. This may improve. I didn't receive numbers from the assessor's office to update those until after our budgets were printed, so that may improve. But for now, it's a $600,000 less than what we had in the current year. Litigation tax, the one I just spoke of, that we are using $275,000. It's a revenue source that's coming in that can be used for, as I said, principal and interest on the construction of workhouse and jails. So we're recommending moving that revenue stream to the debt service fund to be able to pay towards that debt that we have on the new workhouse. Even moving it at the end of this fiscal year, we're estimating about $2 million left in that reserve so that they can still have that available to make any kind of renovations that they need to on the jail. Investment income, we've talked about that, estimating $400,000 less next year and yet. And the county clerk has estimated $500,000 less in excess fees for next fiscal year. But the largest and most significant decrease is the boarding of prisoners, the boarding of state prisoners, and it's an estimate of $1.7 million less in next fiscal year than what we've got budgeted for this fiscal year.
Is that due to numbers of prisoners?
It's due to numbers of prisoners. They've been reducing.
So they haven't adjusted the price on us yet, the daily rate.
Not for many
No.
years, they have not.
They're
No, it's still
still-
I know
35.
several years ago, they
They took it
dropped it
down a
down to
little.
29 for a year or two and
Mhm.
brought it back.
This is just straight decrease in numbers.
And
Okay,
we're
so-
averaging out there roughly 650 prisoners a month.
Well, we've
right?
been averaging 750 plus or minus, and we're down to 650 plus or minus.
Okay.
On-
That's good, but it's bad.
it's-
Well, not necessarily. Where's that extra 100? Maybe they're living out in the Blackman
Well,
community
no,
right now.
we sent them back to
Not
the state, and
serious.
they redistributed them or released them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Largely released, I would say.
Okay. On the appropriation side, we have increases in expenditures primarily due to recognizing the steps for those employees who've been in their current step for 3 years, which added about $450,000 in expenditures. And we adjusted our table 1%, and that cost is about $385,000. There are new positions and positions eliminated in the general fund. In this budget, we've added 2 SRO positions, one of the middle schools and one for to be shared between campus McFadden, Thurman Francis. I believe there was a 4th school that one was going to be added
One
for.
in Laverne, I believe.
Laverne.
I have a question about that. Do all the K through 5 schools have SROs?
They will when we make this,
Every
that
single
one.
one of them.
that's,
We've asked them to give us a list of where all the SROs are
McFadden
listed.
has been K through 12, K through 8, and they haven't had
They
a
haven't had
SRO
one.
in the past?
no.
I don't think so.
I was
Maybe it's
wondering
that
if we
one.
could get by without an SRO at Alaskasas and Kittrell and take those to the new middle schools.
You're moving one of them to the middle school.
I know, we're still hiring another one.
Well, okay, now there's two SROs currently at
At
Central
Central,
Middle,
yeah.
and so one of those can move
It's
to
moving.
Yeah.
one of the middle schools.
But if McFadden hadn't had an SRO all these years with K through 8, why do they need one at K through 5?
Okay.
Aren't-
You can talk about.
And Thurman Francis,
Right.
you can talk to, yeah, we need to, we've had this discussion. but
We can have that at the Health and Ed Budget
Right.
Joint
Right.
Meeting and all
We
that.
we
But-
left
but
this
it's
on
in here
here
now.
for you,
Okay.
for you to have a further discussion about this.
Right.
This may not be the year to fill those last few spots for SRO, is all
Possibly.
I'm afraid of.
Okay.
Okay.
Not that I'm not saying they don't do a good job.
Are they sharing those at campus,
They
McFadden,
would-
Thurman, Francis? or is that
That's the
one?
recommendation.
That's their recommendation.
Is to move one, is to have
Have
one
them and they
And share.
rotate.
Because now a lot of the elementaries or primary schools have one that's split with another school. Like I think
Well, this-
the
this
Laverne
person would be
Primary and
split.
Roy Waldron have one.
I think this is
back
going to be
and
split
forth.
to four
Split 4
schools.
ways on that one is what they're proposing.
Okay. The last time we had a full commission, you approved the domestic violence investigator. That will be 75 funded from the feds and 25 for us for 3 years. So that's in there. We've added a fire chief and eliminated a fire coordinator. So really, that's a net gain of nothing.
What's the difference in salary?
Okay, we'll get to
We'll
that.
get to
We'll
that.
get to that. This is your overview,
okay.
okay?
That's just 4 lines down.
I'm sorry.
Okay. In the environment office, there's an administrative assistant position that we're eliminating, but there is a vacant position in planning that we would move that to, so we're losing one there. That's the Sue.
So,
Yeah.
And
And
she
she's
will-
already,
She's going
Who's
multi-program.
she's going to do bad.
Environment, the state has cut that office to nothing.
That's-
They had
that's-
7 people over there, they're down to 1 going out in the field at this point in time. Because one of them's out on sick leave, I believe, because I was actually over there for a constituent the other day, and it's unbelievable the workload they've got, and I hate to see them lose the one person they've got. That
Well-
just stays in the office.
Well, we're
She'll
going to
still
still
be
keep the
there.
office open, but it won't be on the same total number of hours. She'll be next door for
Going back and
emergency
forth.
if we need to.
So she'll still be there.
The revenue has been cut basically to nothing.
Yeah, that's a state-funded office,
State
except for that
funded.
one position.
Yeah, and our revenue has decreased from 36,000 to less than 12 this year, and next year it would maybe zero. Because they don't want us to collect a local fee, but we'll tell you a bit more about that.
We're also losing a position, a zoning inspector. In drug court, we're losing a case manager and moving a therapist from full-time to part-time. Also within the general fund, there is recommended a fundamental change in how fire services are addressed in the rural area. You'll have more discussion on this to come, but right now the net cost to the budget is about $20,000. All right, let's go down to solid waste. Once upon a time, there was 3 cents that went to this fund, and we've moved that out years ago and have been using fund balance a portion every year. There's a little bit more demand on fund balance in next year, primarily because there's a truck in the budget. Ambulance fund, we're balanced. I'll skip that.
So the truck and the solid waste is coming from where?
It's in the appropriations.
Oh, okay.
She just said we would have to use a bit more of our fund balance to pay for that truck. We haven't bought a truck in
Is
Gosh,
that,
3 years or
so
more.
You haven't been here. We
Is
haven't
it-
bought one
We
since
haven't
you've
bought one
been here.
since I've been here.
is that one that picks up the school's trash
Probably
there?
roll-off.
Well, probably one of our roll-offs that picks up convenience centers.
They've got
They got
6 or
two.
7 roll-offs, and they got several
Yeah,
roll-offs.
and only 2 of the funding those.
Yeah.
Yeah. to the
We
front.
haven't purchased a truck for that department. I know, as long as he's been here, we have not replaced.
5, 6 years, something like that.
Maybe more.
probably.
On the Industrial Economic Development Fund, that's the revenue source from that is interest from a note from Wary Housing and from the Airport Authority. And, I mean, there's really not much change in this particular Industrial Economic Development. The expenditures are virtually the same. In drug control, we've got problems in drug control in the family. I kind of mentioned that the last time we met, that there is a reduction in the fines that are coming from the courts and from the sale of confiscated equipment. So much so that the Sheriff's Department has determined that they are eliminating 2 positions in this budget. One is already vacant, has been vacant. The other one of the positions, the people will move to a vacant position in the sheriff's budget. But even with those, we'll still be using $220,000 of fund balance. Development tax, or estimating another $1.1 million into next year's budgeted revenue for development tax. In this fund, there's 2 major projects, 2 capital projects that are addressed: the communications project and fire and rescue. And I'm sure you'll hear more about that as we go through this budget process. As I mentioned earlier, we're recommending using that $975,000 that we had previously set in it's a designation. It's not a reserve, it's a designation, which the difference that means is that you can decide whatever you want to do with it. But following this one line out, it pretty much leaves our development tax fund balance at $3 million at the end. On the road and bridge, we're showing using $1.9 million of fund balance, but I wanted to give you a listing here. The road board typically budgets quite a bit of their fund balance, but they don't usually end that way. So I've given you 5 years worth of increases and decreases to their fund balance. And they've had improvements to their fund balance for the last several years. Just in 2009, they finally did use a portion of their fund balance. I'm going to wait. This is where we're going. I'm going to catch you up real quick. On that front page, we've got certified tax rate, $2.44. 81. the revenues are calculated on using that certified tax rate. Okay, so when you see this, that's, the revenues have got that number in it. And I'm just kind of going over where we are on the appropriations over and under. And that's what this is, kind of in detail.
Thank you. Apologize for being late.
That's
I got
okay.
hung up in the traffic, so.
Okay, so we're at the general, general oh, no, well, I want to go back to Road and Bridge. By natural attrition, over the last 3 years, they've reduced their staff from about 77 down to 66. This budget is calculated on 66, and still 4 of those are vacant. But of the remaining employees, there is an estimate of 5% increase on their salaries.
You must be slow catching on. Says you reduced it from 77 to 66. Now, that says how many you have, and then you say other remaining employees.
What I was saying, what I'm trying to say is that over 3 years, 3 years ago, they had about 77 employees. They've reduced it down to 66. But even the budget is based on 66 people, and 4 of those positions are vacant.
So,
And then-
so
So they have-
62 people will be budgeted at 5%
5%.
increase.
Right.
Okay.
And they did not receive an increase last year.
No.
It says here quarry operations have been eliminated. Have we closed the quarry down?
Not whether they have yet or not, Mr. Jernigan can tell us, but they're going to, effective at the end of this fiscal year, or no later than, that's their plan.
What right now, we ain't got 2 people up there. And far as the rock quarry, we're not crushing no stone. We got enough rock probably to last at least 3 years. And if they do decide when they get ready to need some at that time, instead of money they had to spend to bring the crusher back up, you could do 1 or 2 things. You could either buy the rock, or you could run a portable crusher, crush what you need for a few years. But we
There has
just,
been interest in the back from private companies wanting to buy the quarry. I mean, I guess that's
well,
all.
the road board discussed that, and I don't think that'd be coming forward because I won't say too much about it because it's their business, but if you closed it, then you'd have no where. You got 1,100 miles of road when you working on roads every day, and you hauling off stuff where you working on, there's nowhere to put it. You grandfathered in up there, same way on brush and all, burning everything. It's worth its weight in gold just on it.
Okay. Now we're going to move next to General Purpose School Fund. Now, the Board of Education anticipates receiving over $7 million in additional funds from the state BEP. In addition, the Board of Education has been holding back on expending appropriations in the current year in hopes to have funds available to use next fiscal year. And you can see on here we need about $6.8 million. Now, because of the reduction of state sales tax, and the estimate next year is about $1.5 million less than the current year. At this point, comparing the budget 2011 to 10-11 to 9-10, we're about $500,000 short in our maintenance of effort. So we need to address the $500,000.
Well, we could charge them for what it costs for their prisoners, right?
Yes. Okay. Now you can see they've got a healthy fund balance estimated at the beginning. And that's the about 15.6, and that is attrition, and they're doing some other things. They're not buying some books, some textbooks this time, and I've given you one extra sheet that Jeff has gotten through a lot of detail on his budget. I'm not going to go over that. I just give that for your information. Now we're going to skip the cafeteria and we're going to talk about debt service. And you can see on debt service that our revenues exceed our appropriations by $1.4 million. Now there's additional revenue in there now. We're talking about that litigation tax. We now is showing that into the debt service fund. Because this high school was delayed, we've delayed it a year. And of course, in the beginning, we were adding monies into the development tax each year with anticipation of building that high school. And along with the high school, with some other general capital projects. There's money available in this fund that we could use. So our recommendation, our final recommendation, and if you go back to your sheet, is using approximately $3 million of the revenue and moving the revenue that's going into the debt service into the county general fund, and a $2.5 million and a $500,000 into general purpose schools.
If you do that, and then when you get ready to build a high school, what's that gonna do to you?
Let's keep talking. Let's keep talking.
Okay.
Okay. Just look at the bottom line on the debt service. We will show that we're using $1.5 million. Once we move the revenue out, $1.5 million of the debt service. That'll leave us almost $31 million left still in debt service. So you've got some cushion there still.
We breaking any of our own policies by using debt service money?
No. We're not breaking any policy. We're just redistributing how the property tax will be split.
All right, answer me this.
Okay.
If I understand you, you're gonna take about $2.5 million and put it in general fund, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, that helps them operate for the coming fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you gonna do the following year? You still got a $2.5 million gap.
No, we will,
We will
once it's
shuffle.
there, it's there.
You'll do
It'll
what?
stay there.
It'll be spent.
It'll be spent.
So next year, you gotta make up that
Yeah,
shortfall.
You
where's
gotta
it
make it
No.
up the following year.
No, I'm saying that revenue stream stays in
Or
the,
you're not gonna move it from fund balance. You're
I'm
gonna
not
move
moving it from fund balance.
So it'll be
I'm
$2.5 million every year.
I'm distributing,
Redistribution of the
thank
pennies.
you, redistribute
A half a penny roughly.
pennies, yes.
Did we not, year before last, put 2 cents or 3 cents into the debt service fund?
Last year we kept it the same.
No, but the year
And the year
before,
before we added.
when we meant capital maintenance, education.
And
maintenance.
2, 3 years ago, we were still planning to, that was that estimate of building high school, building judicial center, all that coming on, that's what that plan was.
So
So
you're gonna refinance some of this debt, hopefully, and make up that stream
that's
back in
gonna
the
be,
debt center?
that's gonna be part of it.
There's a potential of $2 million to $4 million there, that we may even cover this next year. But you can see that even with doing this, the $31 million is still $2.5 million over a 70% fund balance requirement, you might say. So we still have a very adequate and balance there that's $2.5 million more than what we would say our policies would require.
Okay.
So what's the goal with the general fund to have it actually balanced without having to shuffle money from other funds? 2 years from now, 3?
Well, even still with shuffling $2.5 million, we're still $1.5 million short. Because I just want to say that we're still, yeah.
Do you have a projection that somewhere down the line it can start carrying itself?
Well, I'm thinking about the revenues that are decreased.
So if the economy
So-
picks up, you hope that it'll pick up.
Yes.
Okay.
Interest improves, if the county clerk improves.
You get back to where you
boarding of
were.
prisoners,
Oh, yeah.
if all that starts coming back in, then that'll help.
And if the number of state felons come back some, that's $1 million right there
Or
of what we're
if
talking
they,
about. That's more than the $1.4 million that we're short.
or even if they pay us for what we.
Or even part of what it costs us.
So we need a little Statue of Liberty in front of the courthouse that says, bring us your felons, bring us your, and all down the list.
Yes. Okay, so if you flip to the page 5,
Glad he's retiring.
on the first, you see the current ratio of the certified tax rate. This is, the second one is the proposed ratio of the certified tax rate, just redistributing those funds. Come to the right where it says proposed ratio on estimated net collections. This is how the revenues would then be split compared to the results from the current ratio, and then the last column is the increase or decrease. So you see, by redistributing, then we get 2.5 million in the county general. We need about 600 in education because that's split between the two schools. We need about 600,000 to net nearly 500,000 that can go to general purpose schools.
There's
That's the end of my story.
two different tax rates, the certified tax rate, and then what's the other one?
I mean, it's you have your
We brought it up. We
you
brought it up
adopted your
years
tax
before.
rate. You've adopted a tax rate.
Yes.
Now, this process of reappraisal, you're going to have more. Your appraised values went up. Well, to generate the same amount of revenue, this process goes through to say, okay, if your values went up, then your tax rate should go down. So this whole computation every 4 years is, okay, so now we're recognizing all this
I understand
increase
that.
in,
I
so
understand
then we
that.
get down to, so the certified rate is, this is your tax equivalent to $2.73.5.
Well, we've talked in years past of voting in the certified rate or.
Yep, the Board of Commissioners will have to make a decision. If you were to adopt the certified rate, which is 2.4481, as the actual property tax rate, you would generate the same money that the 273.5 is generating today.
Right.
So you'll have to make a decision. Do you generate that rate, one that's greater or less than?
If we raise it, then that's basically a tax increase.
Yes, if you
Right.
raise it.
So if you keep it at $2.4481, that's not a tax increase.
On average, everybody's paying the same amount of money.
On the
as last
average.
year. Some people pay a little more, a little less, depending on the circumstances.
Right.
What the rate did, or what the property to appraisals did in their area, where
Yeah.
they live, or the commercial.
Some people will go up, some will go down.
That's right.
But it seems
I've been hearing from the one.
that they can't calculate that all the way down to the dollar. So if we ended up with a 244.81, we could still come up 100,000 short here, 50,000 short over here, 75,000 short over there, even though they've tried to estimate it as close as they can. That's conceivable, is it not? In different funds, you end up
It's.
falling a little
That could
bit
happen.
short, which
Well-
they would say we cut it really close, but down here, $100,000 is a lot of money.
Yes, well, where the money comes in, it's how, even with the pennies, it converts to a ratio, and that percentage of that dollar comes in is split based on how your rate is. So the estimate, I guess I'm saying is, whatever estimate that we're using, that's how the money is going to be distributed to all the funds. So in total, where would be short if our assessments aren't really what they really are. That's where you'd be short, and you'd be short pro rata
Everywhere.
over every fund.
Over all funds.
But that's conceivable that can happen.
But that can happen any year.
Well, that could
Otherwise, you're
happen
saying
any
your
year.
calculations were perfect to start up
Yeah.
with.
Your guess.
What I caution is the $2.44.81 is what has been turned into the state, and the state's got to verify it.
I understand all that, but I'm saying that I'm not saying you, I'm saying we as a county are making a statement that our calculations are almost perfect, and that we're going to generate what we previously had, and we're going to come so close to that it won't make any.
We do that every year.
That's what you gotta do.
Man, we do that.
You ain't got nothing else to go by with these figures.
Well, I'm not arguing that, I'm just saying
Well,
it's not.
what's
that
your
this is
point
not-
then?
My point is that this is not perfect, and that we could come up short
It
on
ain't
some
gonna
of
never
this.
be perfect.
There's
Well-
one more variable, though, this year than 3 of the the last 3 years, and that's the certified rate. Is it, that's another, as close as you can get it is what you're doing, but there's still some
That's right.
room in there that you don't know about. It's just like with her estimate, she tried.
Mathematically, the number is precise. And it will generate the same revenue that the previous rate generated. Now,
They go, the Board of Equalization meets after we set the tax rate.
there you
That's-
go.
If they
that's the other
adjust
variable.
things, that plays with our number.
That does.
That won't be
That won't be
huge numbers in the
reflected.
big scheme of things, but if they go up and drop everybody's rate that goes in front of them, that'll take money out of our
Well, true.
revenue
Which-
stream.
They do
You
some
know,
big places.
If, to me, if they do that, then that does have effect on your certified tax rate.
It's too late to change it by then.
Well, you
Because they
got,
meet after we've set the
Oh,
tax
yeah.
rate and after the state has certified the rate.
Right.
well, you gotta go
That's
back and
what I
look.
was talking about.
You gotta use the back history on the way it's been. That ain't happened, so the odds that happening
Percentage wise, it's a small number.
be
It
slim to
goes in
none.
front of them.
And two, from this point that they do all this, here we are in April, anything that you add on from April to the time you do your cutoff, which is what, September 1, that changes the assessments too.
Yeah.
And we've
Right,
got-
and that's what I told him, we've got,
we have some new items, new construction, both.
There were some growth numbers in
Some
there.
growth
Right.
numbers
Yeah.
that will give us some additional revenue
right,
coming forward that are not in this number
But there's growth numbers every year.
every year.
Right.
Yes, correct. So that's how we do get a little bit of increase without raising a tax rate, with the growth and the
New
additions of
houses, new
new
buildings.
housing, new buildings, and equipment.
As an overview then, we had about 4 areas in the general fund that did not come up to projections this year. And we have the sales tax also for the
On
whole
schools.
county, yeah. So next year, can you, in a nutshell, did you project them all the same as this year, or you
that's
went
what I
down?
said.
Okay.
Sales tax next year is like $1.5 million less.
Okay. And the fees from the county clerk and the register of deeds, et cetera, is less also?
Less.
Less than projections or less than actual numbers this year? Do you lower your projections or lower?
All right,
Sales tax is about the same as this year. She hadn't
So we're
projected an
projecting,
increase.
oh yeah, we're projecting up and equivalent
dropped
to
that
actual
last
numbers.
you know, I'll tell you, as the time goes on, but I did just slightly the last 3 months of this year, hoping. We may come back and visit those again.
You've adjusted them down the last 3
Mhm.
months, is what you're saying.
So this is not based on optimism that we're gonna pick up and get rolling
And go
like we
up.
were 2 or
It's
3
pretty
years
much
Flat.
flat.
Okay.
We haven't projected a continuing decline, except in these 3 or 4 places that it's obvious there is a decline. But sales tax, we think it's stabilizing.
Can't get a lot worse.
No.
The last 3 months of last fiscal year, we were down 8 or 9%. So I'm hoping I'm going to see increases.
And that 8 to 9% has dropped to just a little over 4% year to year. So it's made some improvement, it appears.
Okay.
So these are projections to date.
I gotta ask one more question. I look and you're saying that roughly 1/7, the jail is housing roughly 1/7 fewer people than it was last fiscal year. Also, we're seeing that the fees that come in are less. And yet, I look at the bottom line in the general fund, we're projecting to have 2 less full-time this coming year than we had in 2009, 2010, but we have 5 more part-time.
Crossing guards
Okay.
Crossing
That's the
guards
only
for
one?
new
for the new
schools.
schools.
Okay. And that's a general, obviously, it
General
must
fund.
be if you just said that, right? Okay.
I didn't touch on part-times,
Mhm.
but that's what that is.
Listening to the news, I've heard that, the Fed is kind of knocked around the interest rates that they have out there now. I don't look for them to go any lower. I mean, But that would make a substantial difference if the Fed raised the interest rates on what we were, that would change our estimates drastically. And
Yes.
that's something that I feel like we'll probably have, you have any feeling on that, or?
Not till I see it. You know, it's,
I mean, if it went up 1%, I mean, what would that do to your
1 to
calculation?
1%.
A lot of money.
Well, people don't realize that a lot of the way that the county, that we make money is we invest that money, and with the interest rates as low as they are, that's part of the reason we're having all the difficulty maintaining our budgets. And if there is a slight increase in that Fed rate, that's why I was bringing that out. That would make a huge difference in our budgets over a year's time.
Last fiscal year, in the general fund, we received almost 1.6 million. I estimated 800,000 to this year, about half.
Right.
You know, for a while there, I was thinking, oh my gosh, we may not even get half of that, 400, but I think we might get, 560. But even during this year, you've seen as the year progressed how low it keeps
Right.
decreasing. I'm hoping at some point it will increase.
Well, normally.
But still, I've shown a reduction.
Historically, after a recession, we start having inflation. And to stop inflation, they'll raise the interest rates. And that's why I'm thinking this is going to kind of level itself out as, if the Fed actually raises that rate, then we generate more revenues just from the interest there, which is a big part of how we generate money, so.
We need to be sure we get whatever refunding we're going to get done before there's any short-term rate changes, which are probably, short-term rate changes are probably from the Feds at least 6 months away, but they may happen in the next 12 months.
Well, I mean, we met and gave y'all the.
We do. We're working on it. We had one
Okay,
rating agency
that was the
call.
next
This
question
morning,
coming up.
We had
this
one
morning.
call this morning and
But-
another one tomorrow.
So there's a potential for $2 to $4 million there that would help us in our actual cost.
Yeah.
Going back,
Go ahead.
going back to the general purpose school budget funds. So we're thinking 7.25 million coming in additional in BEP funds. But then we're $500,000 short in the maintenance of effort deal. I mean, I remember last year, their ending fund balance came in about 4 million over what we were sitting here at budget saying they were gonna have, not counting the BEP funds. It was 4 million over that. Of course, I know they're gonna be using most of that in opening up these 2 new schools. But if they got a good handle on, I think we had 2 major issues last year. One was electricity or water or something that we had to pull out of at the last minute, and then, but then the ending fund balance, like I said, came in 4 million over, just like we were sitting here talking at the table that it normally does.
Something interesting.
And then we're looking at, they're projecting 6.8 million, they're gonna be short.
That they're gonna, yes.
And they're going to use ending fund
They're gonna
balance
use
to
their-
basically cover that. They're going to use the $7.5 million to cover the cost of opening the new schools, primarily.
If they hadn't come out over on ending fund.
And other
we'd be
costs.
in trouble
We'd be in
right now.
trouble.
Yes.
But they did put off buying some
Textbooks.
new issues, some new books and different things. We
What-
were told about in Health Net the other night.
Education assistants are.
And they've got some increases here in the retirement costs that are required. That's a push down from this consolidated retirement system. So all of that adds up to some things that they really don't have any real control over.
Government done a good job on it.
They did a real good job not spending all their money this year.
What I'm saying.
Commissioner Bullen.
We bring this up every year too. The late Chancellor Whitney Stegall lived in my neighborhood, and he hammered me all the time about collection of late property tax. He always thought that the county was not aggressive enough to do that. So he finally made an impression on me to the point that I'd have to go and check and see if they were pursuing it as he would like it. So my question to you, Mayor, is Well, we make a request over there to see that they're pushing that as hard as they can push it, because that is enough money that's out that can make a difference.
It makes a real difference. Mr. Beatty has the records on that for the last several years, and it's trailing, of course. Now, you'll see on her sheet here that she's got a reserve of 4.5% for the first year. But before we get through with this, over the next 2, 3, 4 years, we'll have that to 99.4 or 5% collected.
That's terrific if you can get it
It's
there.
really good.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Nolan, anything else on your overview?
I guess the end of my story is if in a few months it still lays out, then adopting at $2.4481 is not a tax increase.
Which we'll need to round that to 45.
We don't have to, we can just keep it at 24481.
Not if you try to tell somebody, you gotta remember four
Oh,
numbers.
just round it
not-
to, oh, it's 245.
Now, gentlemen, of course, this is the overview, and we have several work sessions scheduled where we will work in detail and perhaps refine what has been presented. Let me call your attention to a couple of those reminders. Our first work session will be May 11. That is at 5:30. And on May 11, we do start with the general fund. In fact, we have like 3 meetings where we work through the general fund. But we will begin with working with the general fund. That's May 11 at 5:30.
I have that written down.
And let me call attention, each of you have a packet like this at your place. This is for our next regular budget meeting, which is next week, May the 6th. And there's something very important in there. There is a DVD for you to hopefully have time to view before the meeting. These are proposals from the Insurance Committee dealing with Gadsby and with insurance rates for the 2011 year. And if you could take the time to view this, Mrs. Miller was still with us, and this was her presentation, and I think it will be a little clearer, and it will save us some time at our regular meeting next week, if you can take some time to do that DVD before you get to the meeting. So that is your homework.
That's not the insurance committee meeting, that's a DVD that she created herself.
No, it's
the
DVD from the
DVD of
actual
the
meeting.
insurance meeting.
It's actually from the actual meeting, so that will save us some time. Since she is not going to be here to make the presentation, we'll just view it from the DVD. Commissioner Setman.
Lisa, we talked about, and the school board's been running it over too, as far as moving that high school, building that high school, and there's been a couple of locations where it's been, depending on the numbers of the students, where it needs to be built and all that sort of stuff. I guess from the school board aspect, I don't know if you know, but I mean, what is that doing to us by holding off another year on building that high school? Because we're pulling some money out of that 31 million to make up the difference there, and I understood what you're talking about there, but do we need to talk about that at another meeting in depth more, or is it?
Are you asking what's that going to do to our plan?
Yes.
Well, because it's on down the line, I mean, it's giving you some availability today.
Well, in both locations where we're talking about high school, we own the land.
We own the land.
So we're not talking about startup costs or anything like that, buying land, doing sewer, or anything,
Right.
it's all there.
Mhm.
So we're just talking about bricks and mortar now, as far as going out on the bond issuance and.
We'll be in, there's really not a problem with the capital piece of it. Where you're gonna have to deal with it again is in the operating cost.
Yeah.
Staffing it.
Yeah. But you're looking at 18 months or 2 years before having to deal with that issue because of the time frame on building that school. And at the same time, we're getting behind every day, or we're getting more crowded in those 2 areas every day, or one area especially.
But we're gaining some at Central in the short term.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is just a sidelight, but I was at Toots in Smyrna the other day, and they had old newspapers on the desk, they're laminated in there, and I happened to be sitting at a table that was from back in the 80s, and the initial, not initial offering, but initial appropriation for the 2 new high schools up there was 11.85 million. And what are we facing now? 50? That was in the late 80s.
Gentlemen, anything else we need to discuss to help us be ready for our meeting next week and the following week for the work session?
Well, while we're on the air, I would like to congratulate the Seagull Middle boys soccer team who just won the county soccer tournament. My son was playing, or was. I've been getting texts during the they won 5-2. And congratulations to them.
Anything else that needs to come before our committee? Thank you. We are adjourned.